Ladies and gentlemen, the Twitter files supplemental. Yeah, they're suppository versions of the fuck me, this is dumb. If the interesting thing about it for me, most of all, is that it was going nowhere anyways. And it's almost as if they're like, hey, what can we put on here that will absolutely poke a giant fucking hole in the idea that somehow there was a coordination between Twitter and the FBI to silence Donald Trump. In July 2020, San Francisco FBI agent Elvis Chan, which awesome, tells Twitter executive Yoel Roth to expect written questions from the Foreign Influence Task Force, the interagency group that deals with cyber threats. I believe FITF would like a response ahead of our meeting the week of August 10th. It can be a written response or we can set up a phone call, whatever is easiest for you. I think we could tell from the nature of the questions that there was quite a bit of discussion at the USIC to get clarifications from your company. Let me know how you would like to proceed. Thanks. Obviously, an iron grip. The hand in fucking glove. The questionnaire authors seemed displeased with Twitter for implying in a July 20th DHS ODNI FBI industry briefing that you indicated you had not observed much recent activity from official propaganda actors on your platform. Now keep in mind, the fucking CCP and the Russians and everybody on their legit propaganda outlets were like, they were saying a ton of shit. They always are. During the 10 July 2020 working group meeting on election security, you indicated that you had not observed much recent activity from the official propaganda actors on your platform. To make sure we understand the state media online landscape as much as possible, we hope you would be able to answer some questions about your analysis and conclusions. For context, other sources we are aware of seems in contrast with our own analysis, and we documented it at the time of our discussion. We would appreciate any other information you are willing to provide about your recent conclusions. So on. In what way, and by what measures do you see official propaganda actors as less active than other groups on your platform? What groups are you comparing to official propaganda actors? What official propaganda actors did you include in your analysis? How do you differentiate official propaganda actions from foreign state actors, and what is reasoning? And what is the reasoning to make that distinction? In which bucket do you place, for example, outlets such as Abruptly or In the Now, which are part of the state media apparatus, but which seek to obscure that link by using different branding? Are they included in your analysis? What quantitative metrics do you use to, this is just violence, do you use to judge volume of activity on your platform? On what scale, and can you provide these metrics? What relative weight do you give each metric when judging volume of activity? I swear to God, I don't know how any of these Twitter executives slept at night. They must have just felt like there was a red dot on their forehead every time they started going into their dreamy dreams. What quantitative measures did you use to inform judgments about activity, including the volume of activity on your platform? How do you limit the scope of your analysis of the domestic scam, foreign state, official propaganda, and white supremacist actors, i.e. date range, language, location, topic, etc. References: Oxford Internet Institute, University of Oxford, COVID-19 news and information from state-backed outlets targeting French, German, and Spanish-speaking social media users, blah, blah, blah. Okay, by the way, a lot of these questions are in coordination with other countries, and that's why the EU is so pissed. What the fuck do they think this is? How does anyone look at this and think this is like the US government leveraging this fucking company? One would think that would be good news. The agencies seem to feel otherwise. Yes, because they're concerned that you don't realize that these fake private companies are official propaganda actors for Russia and China and fucking MBS. I think they might think things are handled, and then they get you saying something stupid like that, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. These guys have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Chan underscored this. There was quite a bit of discussion within the USIC to get clarification from your company. Oh, dear God. Quite a bit of discussion. Oh, someone get a fire extinguisher. What the fuck? It's the government. Of course, the government discusses things, you fucking tool. The task force demanded to know how Twitter came to its unpopular conclusion. It's not a fucking popularity contest. It doesn't jibe with reality. Oddly, it included a bibliography of public sources, including a Wall Street Journal article attesting to the prevalence of foreign threats, as if to show Twitter they got it wrong. They did get it wrong. And even then, they're like, you may not have it wrong. You just may be using different assessment metrics than we are. And story for weeks, dude had to flee his house. They think he's a pedophile. They're like, there's all kinds of he's getting death threats and shit. They were banning about Trump shitting on him from that New York Post article. And then all of a sudden, he's the one pushing back on this shit. And apparently, he has no problem. Here you go. The questions we received are attached. I'm frankly perplexed by the requests here, which seem more like something we'd get from a congressional committee than the Bureau. There's a big discussion to be had about state-controlled media, which will be impacted by the label launch later this month. But I'm not particularly comfortable with the Bureau, and by extension the IC, demanding written answers here. What's your perspective on how best to navigate? Thanks, Yol. He's talking to the team. This is before they had that, this is state media. And they were interacting with the intelligence community, with the intelligence community, and, I froze. Did I froze? All right. Don't mess with me. I'm not muted. Audio's going out here. It's happening elsewhere. I'm being attacked. It's a Twitch thing? Okay. You should subscribe everywhere. I'm just saying. All right. So, he added he was not, quote, comfortable with, okay, we just saw this. The idea that the FBI acting as a conduit for the intelligence community is interesting, given that many agencies are barred from domestic operations. Okay, fuckhead, they're talking about foreign influence campaigns. That's why the FBI was doing the contacting, you shit. What aggravates me the most about this is this kind of horseshit, childish naivete. Oh, is Twitch being weird? Sound back is on. It's sped up. Oh, it's catching up. It sounds like a data backup. Reload your page on Twitch. Yeah. So, anyways, hi. Yeah, just reload the page. You'll be fine. Okay. Now, he sent another note internally saying the premise of the question was flawed because we've been clear that official state propaganda is definitely a thing on Twitter. Note the italics for emphasis. So fucking what? Of course we know that. Every Chinese government account is official state propaganda. Jesus Christ. And this whole pearl clutching naivete, how they can't, even the mere suggestion of these things. Get the fuck out of here. Roth suggested that they, quote, get on the phone with Elvis ASAP. Thank you very much. And try to straighten this out to disabuse the agencies of any notion that state propaganda is not a thing on Twitter. This exchange is odd, among other things, because some of the bibliography materials cited by the FITF are sourced to intelligence officials who in turn cited the public sources. Yes, because these were conversations they were having with other countries and in other media outlets. Oh, God, this is dumb. The FBI responded to Friday's report by saying it regularly engages with private sector entities to provide information specific to identified foreign malign influence activities, subversive, undeclared, covert, or criminal activities. This is true. That may be true. It is true, you shit. But we haven't seen that in the documents to date. What are you talking about? They're literally talking about this. That's what they're saying. What do you categorize as state propaganda? Does he think the Chinese propaganda stuff from their military arm is somehow different or separate from the rest of it? It's all propaganda, stupid. Oh, God, this is aggravating. And then here we go. That may be true, but we haven't seen that in the documents to date, which is bullshit. Instead, we've mostly seen requests for moderation involving low follower accounts belonging to ordinary Americans and Billy Baldwin. By the way, no, you haven't. Because all the rest of it didn't need a second fucking email. The only place you're going to see it where there was any conversation whatsoever is areas where there was some debate about it. The non-debatable stuff, the FBI let them know, and they immediately stepped on it because it was human trafficking or fucking drug smugglers or people trying to coordinate a January 7th. Jesus. Here's Ron Paul. Get the fuck out of here. Anyways, so to follow up on this absolute turd burger, Mr. High school senior redoing some freshman classes, Ben Shapiro, has Matt Taibi, former pro-rape douchebag who started his journalistic career with a sexist zine in Moscow. They never start in Brazil, do they? They just never... No, they never kick... These fuckers never kick off their career in, I don't know, Italy? That's not a thing? That would be a cool thing. None of them. All these motherfuckers strangely get launched in Moscow or through Russian funding later, and then they get bumped up later, that funding follows them the rest of their life and makes sure that they land someplace. Shit. Okay, so anyways, let's hear if he can clarify the nothingness of this nothingy nothing. Here we go. Maybe he'll release, you know what? I'm being cynical. Maybe he's got a piece of evidence that he's going to share with us only on the Shit Shapiro show, and we're all. It's going to teach me a lesson.
Is Matt Taibbi's former writer at Rolling Stone, editor of TK News Substack, and apparently a radical right-winger. And we found this out because he was the journalist who broke a lot of the material from the Twitter files Elon Musk turned over.
He didn't break anything, fucko. He was given it. He was not only was Matt Taibbi given this stuff, he didn't figure out what the fuck was going on. Musk contacted him and Barry Weiss specifically. He didn't break fucking anything. And secondarily, he's been selectively given access to or allowed to selectively release parts of it. He didn't break any of this shit.
A lot of the old files from Twitter under the auspices of Jack Dorsey and Vijay Gotti and Yoel Roth and all the rest of the Wonder team over there. And Matt was able to break a pretty major story here.
No, he wasn't. He didn't break shit. He agreed to produce bits for Twitter around this stuff to help boost interest in the platform through this fake scandal, ancient aliens level horse shit. And then, sorry, people who like ancient aliens. And then go on a I'm a Real Journalist tour.
Here. So, Matt, first of all, why don't we start by talking about that major story? What was your big takeaway from the files that you've seen from Twitter?
I think there are two. The first one, the big one for me, is that we have concrete proof that the government, and specifically agencies like the FBI and the DHS, are in the censorship business. They are buying and flagging content in huge quantities.
They are buying? The fuck does that mean? Did you mean burying? Also, they're not in the censorship business. These are, in large part, either not American accounts, or, in certain instances, they are violating terms of service in terms of, don't forget to vote on Wednesday, shit.
And sending them back to platforms like Twitter to be moderated. And we have...
Wait a minute, what? Sending material back to Twitter to be moderated?
Sending them back to platforms like...
hold on, wait. I don't even know what the fuck that means.
Are in the censorship business. They are buying and flagging content in huge quantities and sending them back to platforms like Twitter to be moderated. And we have absolute proof of that.
No, you don't.
Documentary proof. The other thing is the Barry Weiss revelations about shadow banning. I think people had suspicions about that, but we now know that they not only do it, but they have an extraordinarily intricate system that allows them to either limit someone's visibility all the way to zero or amplify it as much as they want. So what you're seeing...
Yeah, it's a social media platform that's privately owned. We've known this for a long time. And by the way, notice how everybody that he sources in this visibility filtering issue, all of them have multiple TOS violations. The people who are being quote unquote shadow banned, it is not a giant conspiracy to shadow ban them. And it is not somehow unfair that they are being shadow banned. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true. These motherfuckers get to violate the terms of service over and over and over again and not get kicked off the way the rest of us would because they're bigger known accounts. So what they do is remember when Twitter introduced block or mute? Remember that? That's exactly what you're seeing, just on a major scale, like on the scale of the actual platform. If you block somebody, they know they've been blocked. They can react to you blocking them. They can take steps to say that they were blocked and all this kind of stuff. And it becomes a big thing. But if you just mute some fucker, you don't have to hear from them anymore. Why would it be that users would have a different set of tools necessarily than the actual people who run the fucking company? They put them on mute. They let them stay on the fucking platform talking to their followers, but they don't get to use all the other sources of stuff. Not because they're being shadow banned because of their political beliefs, but because somebody there is too fucking afraid or too in their pocket or too on their side to kick them off when they violate the terms of service like the rest of us would have happen to us. Motherfucker, this is dumb.
On social media is really a heavily distorted version of reality. Social media is not a fucking version of reality at all. It never will be. But that's, of course, grown-up thinking.
So, Matt, you reported on...
I love it when he goes full Porky Pig.
Some of the places that were being shadow banned, obviously, it was Twitter saying they weren't shadow banning. They were kind of using the Dr. Fauci gain of function distinction without a distinction routine. They were saying,
fuck you.
Well, shadow banning is really when you just tweet out there, but nobody can see it. But it's not shadow banning if we just tremendously reduce your reach and make it nearly impossible for...
All of these people had every reason to be kicked off the platform and permanently banned, and they were allowed to stay on. Fuck you.
Anybody to see you, which, of course, is what we all mean when...
Including Trump.
...we say shadow banning.
I would argue especially Trump.
And then you got the usual routine from the journalistic outlets. And this is the part that really was astonishing to me. So there was obviously the revelation that everything we had suspected about Twitter was true, that they were just discriminating against certain content.
No, they weren't. Matt is only sharing content that shores up the right-wing side of the argument while tacitly saying things like, obviously, both sides made requests and both sides had their requests honored. But he only shows the ones that are from either the Democratic side of the aisle or what would be like liberal or progressive ideas getting, their day. Everybody else, if a right-winger or the Trump administration, which, by the way, was a sitting government entity at the time, unlike the Biden campaign, asked to get something bumped off, they got their request met as well, but he doesn't show that. He didn't show the Slack conversation. He doesn't show the actual stuff that got, kicked off. He doesn't show the list of accounts that they asked to get rid of. None of it.
And certain content creators. I mean, I just noticed that since Elon Musk took over, I gained 1 million followers in about 1 month after Elon Musk took over, which means that, the account...
Yeah, that everybody who left came back. It fucked Truth Social and Parler and Gab and all these. Yeah. There was no magic switch. Also, prove to me they weren't bots.
Had to be actively suppressed. There's no other reason why I'd get him. I wasn't that great this month on Twitter. So, something happened. But,
By the way, I can interrupt you. You had a case in what they call SIP-PES, which is the Supreme Court of moderation. I actually saw your page. I may be breaking news here, but I saw the Ben Shapiro page. They actually decided in that case not to slam you, but for sure you were being discussed.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't shadow banned. He didn't get 1 million followers because he was all the fucking sudden shadow banned, and the shadow ban came off, and Solomon was released. Fuck me. This is so nothing happened.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been shocked if I had not been. I was always extremely careful on Twitter as to what I thought their standards were, and so I tended to use sarcasm instead of just straight out saying what I meant in many cases.
Right. And by the way, this is why Ben Shapiro has always been a great example of how everybody who says you get kicked off Twitter because you're a conservative is utter bullshit. Nope. Everything he says is in line with every other talking point you've ever seen from the right. There is no originality in Ben Shapiro's Twitter feed, except for the fact that he doesn't outright call for the death of people, or he doesn't denigrate, he doesn't pull a Steven Crowder and go early 90s shock jock just for the fuck of getting clickbait. That's the only thing.
Cases. So instead of getting banned for saying that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, I would say that a man who said that he was a woman was in fact the most womanly woman that had ever womaned. And so that was my sort of end around to get around the Twitter rules while the tyranny was in place. But
the tyranny.
Oh God, the tyranny.
What was really astonishing is after you broke all this material, you would imagine
He didn't break anything. He didn't fucking break anything. As a matter of fact, let me be abundantly clear. I'm going to say this for the last fucking time, I hope. Matt Taibbi is in business with Elon Musk to selectively release information from one side of an argument to manipulate the electorate and the viewing public. That is propaganda.
that the journalistic outlets who are interested in speaking truth to power might actually be mildly interested in the fact that one of the world's largest social media platforms was being manipulated from both the inside and the outside.
It was not being manipulated from the inside and the outside. First of all, the inside can manipulate it all the fuck they want. It's their site. It's a private entity. And the outside, in everything that we've seen, has been going, by the way, you might want to watch out for that. Or not. I mean, it's up to you. That's it. That's the manipulation. Fucking hell. It's like watching a hypnotist work.
In some cases, by governmental forces that were manipulating people inside Twitter by telling them that there was misinformation, disinformation coming from abroad. They probably should do something about that. And
which there was.
Sort of this broad, Henry II, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest kind of way. And then,
Lord.
At the same time, from inside the company, where you had activists who were essentially overwriting their own policies in order to specifically pick and choose who should be banned. You'd imagine that people in the media.
Which is exactly what Elon Musk is doing right now. Overtly. He literally said, journalists I don't like being banned.
Who supposedly,
from my platform,
are in favor of free speech, would be in favor of this. Instead, they got very angry at you for having reported the story at all. It's hard.
No. I don't have a problem with reporting the story at all. I have a problem with specifically and intentionally only producing elements from one side of the conversation while going, yeah, I mean, obviously it happened on both sides, but this is the side that really got it. Well, how do I know if I don't see the evidence of the other side to compare it to?
Hard for me to tell whether that's professional jealousy because they wish that Musk had actually gone to them, or whether they are so...
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you can't... Ben, come on, man. You can't can't fuck up his whole narrative now. You were doing so well that he broke the story. Right? He broke the story. He broke. Matt Taibbi fucking rappelled down the outside of Twitter headquarters and made a little circle in the window and reached through with his arm and opened it, snuck in there with a fucking pen light in his mouth and went through a file cabinet and figured all this shit out. Or did Elon Musk just buy the place and deliver a narrative to him?
Hard for me to tell whether that's professional jealousy because they wish that Musk had actually gone to them.
Musk had actually gone to them. You do realize you're talking about propaganda, right? I said this is the last time I was going to say it, but that's what this is. Imagine it's not Twitter. Imagine it's not Twitter. Imagine the new CEO of British Petroleum goes to Matt Taibbi and says, the last guy that ran this place was a fucking asshole, but I'm running it special. And I want you to do a special report about our Tanzanian pipeline that supposedly was leaking. And it was leaking out of both sides, one into the drinking water and one into the desert. I want you to do an article about how it just leaked into the desert and it was no big fucking deal. And Matt Taibbi goes, yeah, I'm your dude.
Or whether they are so ideologically committed to the idea that these platforms need to be policed by their political allies, that they are actually angry that it's now been revealed that was what was happening.
Nobody's angry. This is just dumb. Probably the biggest story emotionally around the Twitter files is how little anybody but the hyper right wing gives a fuck.
Yeah, it's hard to divine. I mean, maybe some of it's professional jealousy.
Oh, God. We are 4 minutes into this fucking clip, and what's the narrative? On the biggest story of censorship online, the FBI and the control and the government forcing its way in and propaganda. And where are we? 4 minutes in? Yeah, other journalists just fucking jealous of me, bro. I mean, I think I think you're right. They're probably all just fucking, they see me and they're like, oh, fuck, I wish I could be him. Shut the fuck up.
I think a lot of it is more just hive mind narrative policing. This story doesn't fit neatly into a category that they would like. I know.
Dude, Ben wants it to fit into a neat category. So do you. That's why you're only writing half of it.
Old school journalists would have been very interested in this story.
And then, once they saw the files, bored to shit.
Because we're getting a look at stuff that you never get to see. Like, how does the FBI and the DHS and,
make suggestions? So do they use the word may, or do they say should, or do they suggest? How many conversations were had?
The CISA and all these other agencies that operate behind the scenes, what are they really doing in their communications with companies like Twitter?
Letting them know that foreign malign influence actors are trying through all different channels to affect our election and drive up the number of COVID deaths by getting people to follow anti-vax accounts and try fucking fish tank cleaner instead of getting proper medication. Shit that actually saves lives.
We're getting a firsthand look at that in a way that you would never get to see.
Yes, it's amazing. I can't imagine why this hasn't been front page news this whole time.
Normal proceedings. So that's fascinating, and the fact that they're ignoring it, I think, it's really more of a burn on them than they realize.
Yeah, you don't even know, bro. You don't even know how fucking I got this, and you don't even know how hot this is. And the fact that they don't give a shit and that it's a big nothing burger is really it's going to come back to haunt them. And, it's going to be they're going to turn around and there's going to be a big nothing burger right behind them. Then what are they going to do? Just walk through it because it's an imaginary scandal that I just made up? I guess they would.
I mean, I think the rest of the country sees that and just laughs, mostly.
Yes, I gotta laugh. I got it. We're all laughing. We're just laughing at the mainstream media for not following this amazing story that Matt broke by having a billionaire tell him what to fucking type.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is so amazing here is
Testosterone. No, that's not it.
is, again, members of the media who started attacking you as right wing.
Dude, he copped to it on fucking Rubin's report, asshole. He's not left wing. By the way, being specifically against certain military actions or against certain corporate actions in American history does not define you as on the left or the right. So going off after BP for an oil spill or going after fucking Dick Cheney for lying about yellow cake is not a left or a right wing. It does not define you in terms of your principles at all. The problem is that there are a bunch of people who thought that Matt Taibbi, because he was, anti-Dick Cheney and George W. Bush, was somehow left-leaning as anti-war, when in reality, he's just rooting for other people. It's like Jimmy Dore's anti-war because he wants Russia to win.
For having the temerity to report what was exclusive material that was given to you, which is...
You heard it, didn't you? You heard him say it again? He said he can't stop. He can't fucking stop. He can't... Ben, you're a fucking moron. Holy shit. Exclusive material that was given to you? Of course it was given to him. He's got a directive from the very guy who wants the story to sound like he wants it to sound.
The way that reporting gets done. Somebody gives you...
No, that's not how reporting gets done. The richest man in the world who just bought a social media company giving you what information he thinks is germane to his argument is not, strictly speaking, how reporting is done. What the fuck?
A piece of material, and regardless of your political persuasion, if that thing is newsworthy, you then report.
It's not. And by the way, he didn't report it based on whether it was newsworthy or not. Idiot. He reported it because he's being paid to report it, and he gets the material afterwards to put on his fucking Substack as some sort of exclusive material because he knows the Ben Shapiro crowd and the Alex Jones crowd and stuff will trample themselves getting into his Substack to pay for it. It's for cash, you shit. Oh, God.
Report on it, and you were giving the raw sources. It wasn't as though...
No, he wasn't. And if he was, why did he only choose to release half of it? Why only the part that supports the right-wing argument, not the left side of things? Except for they were setting up their own political fiefdoms and activists were...
Elon Musk was going through and filtering all of this stuff. He basically, it sounds like, just handed you a giant tranche of information. And now it was your job to go through it and sort of sift through it and figure out what it was. And in fact, the only person, it appears, who was going through and sort of trying to prevent information from getting out ended up being the lawyer Jim Baker, who had formerly worked for the FBI, correct?
Right. Yeah. There was another figure in there who also got kind of moved out, but yeah, Baker. The first batch of files that we got, I could tell what I was looking at were probably documents preserved pursuant to a couple of different litigations, but it looked like a comprehensive set of everything that was related to the Hunter Biden issue. So I didn't really think twice about it. Then we moved on to a different system where we were basically just given computers and allowed to search all kinds of stuff. And
yeah, able to go right into people's DMs. Gave an employee. Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss were both given employee laptops at Twitter. And you know what's wrong with that? Nothing, because they're both Twitter employees now.
It certainly wasn't cherry picked for us. That's for sure.
I mean, so
how do you know?
One of the things that the critique of you that emerged, obviously, in the social media world from the journalists who said they were going to leave Twitter but then didn't, their main critique of you seemed to be you're doing the bidding of the world's richest man or the world's second richest man. You corporate stooge you. And again, welcome to the club, Matt. Now that you're a rabid right winger like me, I hope that you enjoy the water. We've been in here for quite a while, but it's very funny to watch as all these journalists who work for corporate outlets that are owned by extraordinarily rich people. I mean, you have people from the Washington Post owned by Jeff Bezos.
Yes, but Jeff Bezos is not, and it has never even been remotely suggested that Jeff Bezos shows up in editorial meetings and sits down with the actual journalists on a particular writing assignment and tells them, here's the files you get to look at. Here's the files you get to look at. Get at it. And by the way, also, they are owned by larger companies that are owned by shareholders as well. So that every pensioner in the fucking country is somehow equally as manipulative and full of shit as Elon Musk.
Or you have the New York Times owned by the Sulzberger family. And you have these people who are tweeting at you, how dare you take information from Elon Musk?
These horrible Jewish people who just put a swastika in the crossword puzzle. That's how they get you.
Put it out there. You've now become a paid-for contributor, basically, to Elon Musk. Number one, how do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's just funny. I actually laughed out loud when I saw somebody from Bloomberg giving me a hard time and using that line. I mean, if you work for Mike Bloomberg permanently and you're going to give me a hard time about doing one story.
No one works at a newspaper permanently. And if your stories, especially about economics, turn out to be shit more than 3 times, unless you're Jim Cramer, you will lose your job.
For, in conjunction with Elon Musk, that's just laughable. But as journalists, we don't care where the material comes from. As long as it's true, we can verify its authenticity and we can verify that it's newsworthy. I also, I happen to think that Elon Musk's motives in this particular instance are genuine. I haven't had any evidence to the contrary. I mean, he seems genuinely interested in transparency. He seems to have a genuine distaste for
his checks genuinely clear.
Certain kinds of internet censorship, and I think that's probably where this is coming from.
It's exactly where it's coming from, fucko. That's why you have to question the material and the access at which time you got it and from which source. He brought in engineers with him. Do you have any reason to believe that you have enough technical acumen with your fucking employee laptop to go anywhere but where he wants you to go?
Until I see otherwise,
You're not looking. Matt is not looking. He's never going to see otherwise.
I'm just going to look at the documents and do what any journalist would do in this situation and just investigate.
So, Matt, when you look at the people who are sort of the bad actors inside Twitter, one of the things that I talked about after looking at the files that you released and your releases on the files and Barry's and Michael Schellenberger's, one of the things that I came away with is that Twitter transformed itself over the course of its lifespan from a place that was supposed to be the town square for public discussion. We all remember this one because when we first...
No. Notice how he's dropping that phrase in, the town square idea. This is the public utility concept that people bandy about social media networks. And I have news for you. These are private companies that take up no physical space. You know why the town square is special? Because everybody's taxes pay for it, and it takes up physical fucking space. So your access to it and someone else's access to it needs to be on some level equal because it exists. You have to traverse it to get from one side of the town square to the other. And if somebody can stand there screaming and gathering a crowd together, and we all got to have a thing about you need a permit to be in the town square because people got to actually get to and from work, and there's the lunch place over there and the buildings over there, and people use the town square to sit and fucking feed the pigeons and snack or fuck off, just like for anything from Central Park to Times Square itself. It's a useful physical space that is cared for essentially by taxpayer dollars. All social media empires, no matter how big they are, from like from fucking Facebook at the largest probably to like fucking Parler on the tail end take up no physical space out of anyone else's life any more than an office building is. Yes, AM radio is a better example because AM radio is, and why the fairness doctrine makes sense in AM radio is because there are only a certain number of frequencies that you can use for your, and if everybody uses the same one, they overlap and nobody can use them. So people rent them from the public and therefore that standard can be met in theory. But all social media fucking platforms, the servers that they exist on aren't between you and your destination ever. So they're not the town square. Talking about them as if they're the town square and using this analogy for a non-existent virtual space is like saying, I'm sorry I was late to the meeting, but there were too many angels in the way and I kept bumping into them and dropping my project.
Started, it was a Wild West. I mean, you could pretty much say anything on there. You can make whatever jokes you want. Nobody.
And you could traffic children and people could post revenge porn. Yeah, it's awful, dumb fuck. And by the way, if you like it better back then, when it got better, why did you continue to stay on and not just open up a fucking Reddit thread or go to goddamn Craigslist?
We cared. It was a much more casual place. Now, obviously, we all police each other and we go back 10 years and find the tweets from the Wild West period and we try to destroy each other. And
we do? Man, you got a lot of free time.
All of this. But when Twitter first started, it really was sort of the town square mentality.
By the way, when it first started, nobody had 10-year-old tweets. These motherfuckers.
Say whatever you want. It can be as wild as you want it to be. And
no, it can't. Still not true. This is like the open borders bullshit. No, it is not. Mind your fucking business.
It was mainly what I would characterize as sort of an engineering culture. It's like, how do we engineer the town square? And then over time, it became pretty clear from all of this material that it was not about engineering a town square anymore.
It isn't. Never was. You know why? Because town squares take up space, you fucking moron. I hate this argument. It drives me crazy. It is infantile and old and dumb. Even because they try to do, this is how they try to take some of the, like the gravitas of newspapers. But newspapers, before we all got them digitally, took up physical space. There can only be so many newspapers because there were only so many printing presses and there were only so many corner stands and there was only so much space. So they jockeyed for a position. You wanted to be top of the stack. All of this shit. Substack gets its fucking name for being like buried under the goddamn stack of other stuff.
Or because the people who were not the engineers were actually in control of the policy. You had the actual people who were in charge of trying to, for example, cleanse the pornography or cleanse the child sex abuse stuff from Twitter. And
yes, which Ben apparently misses.
They're trying to come up with algorithms. And then meanwhile, you had the actual political hacks, people like Yoel Roth and Vijaya Gadde, who are not engineers, really, sitting there. And
by the way, do you see it coming? Do you see the rake in the yard that Ben is moving towards? Do you see it? Keep watching.
Almost like a Cotty under a tree deciding what to ban and what not to ban. It was almost a change in culture that took place. And meanwhile, Jack Dorsey basically just took off to a cave in Malaysia or something and was vacationing the whole time.
Yeah.
Odd edits. Okay. Do you guys remember when Ben bragged about not saying a man is a man and a woman is a woman, but saying this man is the womanliest woman I've ever womanly womaned? Okay. That's why you need human beings and why algorithms that can't read sarcasm or irony are necessary for policing stuff, even in the case of revenge porn and other stuff. Because if you set up an algorithm that says, check out my girlfriend, and she's buck naked, and she didn't give you the right to that picture, and it will take that one down, but totally not my girlfriend will leave it up. You see the problem? And he's just bragging about getting around the system earlier.
I had somebody describe
bro.
Dorsey as being more like the company's spirit animal than its CEO at one point. But no, what's interesting.
Jesus Christ! And what's Musk? It's old tiger that sits in the corner and bites you every time you feed it.
But the company is, the way it was structured is that the vast majority of the moderation was done on kind of an automated rules-based basis. It was done by the operations department, which was staffed by a lot of people, and they were kind of lower level. And then there was a level above that where you had all these executives, and that's where you start to see all this weird, subjective, clearly politicized, or even just idiosyncratic human intervention.
God forbid. Let me get this straight. The parts that were easily bumped off because they obviously fit a computerized algorithm response weren't discussed a lot. And then the Slack between all the employees spends a lot of time discussing things that the automated algorithm doesn't or cannot handle. Holy shit.
In regular tweets. And the odd thing is they're doing it with tweets that have like 0 engagement or 2 followers. Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
That's because you don't give a shit or see that whether they're bots or not. But the point is the low engagement ones or the low follower count is not necessary for them to get pumped into other people's stuff. If you have 0 followers, you can still wiggle your way into other people's conversations. As a matter of fact, that's how most of the Russian and Chinese bots operate. They get into these big chains and then they pick fights with people and then they write a bunch of shit. If you look on their thing, there's barely any feeds at all. There's barely any original tweets, or what is there is a bunch of bullshit, about a single soccer goal or a fucking cat video or something like that. Yeah, it's a bunch of them.
Why these people would be involved in that stuff, but they were. And look, if there had been a lot of stuff like requests from the Trump White House to zap this or that, and I had seen that, I would have reported it. I just didn't see it. It was all kind of in another direction.
He literally says they both did it. Hold on one second. And it was Twitter Files 3. What do you think? Hold on. Yeah. Gotta back up. This was earlier. Hold on. It was one of the earliest ones, so I have to scroll back. Here we go. We'll just see what I'm looking at. While the DHS and its products pans permissive social media for offering operational advantages to Russians, it also explains that the domestic violent extremist threat requires addressing information gaps. All true, by the way. School shooters, people like that, every other. And here's the other thing too: is you don't get to compare this to the internal conversations of all other social media companies, including, by the way, Parler, Gab, Truth Social. They all have to deal with this shit. They all have to deal with somebody coming on and going, today's the day. All right. Where is he? Yeah, okay. So, okay, is this the early part of it? Let me see if I can scroll back to the top of this. This is 6. Yeah, this is one where he calls it the FBI subsidiary, which is not a fact. It is literally his assessment or his belief, and doesn't turn out to be the case. I want to try the. Let me search for this real quick, because I want to show you guys the exact one I'm talking about. Okay, Twitter Files 3 thread. I think it was 3. Hold on one second. Let's see. I got to scroll down this. Hold on. I'll scroll this over here. This is part 1. Let's see if they, hold on, might be, reveal erosion of standards, first installment, whatever your opinion, decision move Trump that day, blah, blah, blah. As soon as banished Trump, Twitter execs started processing a new power they had to deal with, blah, blah, blah. They removed Trump in part because of what they called context surrounding, because he'd been allowed to stay on. Anyways. Rules-based enforcement, more subjective moderation by senior executives. As Barry Weiss reported, the firm had a vast array of tools for manipulating visibility as the election approached, so that after Jan 6 internal, so Twitter executives getting a kick out of intensified relationship with federal agencies. These initial reports based on searches for docs linked to prominent executives whose names are already public. By the way, notice this part. These initial reports are based on searches for docs linked to prominent executives, meaning that they are self-selecting information out specifically around Yoel Roth and others in this process. Now, let me go back to here, though, because where is it? It's like maybe, did he do 3 or 4? Shit, maybe that's what it is. Supplemental 3. Okay, here you go. World Knows Story of the Riots of Capitol will show you as reveal erosion. Okay, that was the 4th. Fuck you. Oh, that's, they're all on here. Trump was being visibility filtered because he had already violated terms of service and they still let him stay on. Innocuous follow-up. Woods angrily, he has a lot of shit about James Woods. Nobody gives a shit about. Went on heist, only applying soft intervention with Roth. Wow, censorship, optics, backlash. Yeah, they're like, this doesn't work for us as a company if we do too much of it. It's understandable. Lasting steal our votes. Again, unintentionally humorous former Eric Holder claiming U.S. Postal Service was deliberately crippled, ostensibly by the Trump administration. He was initially hit with a generic warning label, but was quickly taken off by Roth. Yeah, because of literally the guy was destroying voting machines. Some executives want to use the new de-amplification tool to limit Trump's reach more right away, beginning with the following tweet, because he was posting videos from a company that had just gotten sued for $1 billion. Significant concerns of Twitter, the 2020 release was deploying a vast range of, yeah, okay, there we go. In Twitter, documents referred to as bots. Let's put a bot on that. A bot is just an automated heuristic moderation rule. By the way, these bots right here are the ones you see in all the Slack conversations that they use. So they pull these, they use the bots themselves to pull information from these, from the Twitter files, which is interesting because then they end up searching. But they used the same search bots that Yoel Roth and those guys were using. Added a bot for a Trump claim made on Breitbart. The bot ends up becoming an automated tool, invisibly watching both Trump and apparently Breitbart. That's how they all, they're not, like, nobody's going to get like, we got a bot on you. Like, all right, anyways. What we can, like, I'll just dive into the whole thing. It's a waste of time.
It's amazing stuff. Well, Matt Taibi,
no, it isn't.
You did an amazing job
No, he didn't.
reporting this. I'm sure there's much more to come. I mean,
no, there isn't. He just did a supplemental.
I'll ask you now. I mean, is there a lot more to come? I assume there's going to be more.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting stuff. There are people searching right now
for interesting stuff. We're going to find some interesting stuff because it's got to exist. In this building the narrative before the evidence? What if specifically you got your people searching and they come back with nothing? How the fuck is this? I've never seen, I don't think, a greater example of establishing a narrative and then building your search results around it
for all kinds of things, and we're trying to sort out what the best stuff to put out next is. But
okay, so it'll be up to you. So you'll just kind of pick and choose.
Yeah, there's going to be more for sure.
It's really fascinating stuff. That's Matt Taibbi.
No, not really.
Former writer at the Rolling Stone and editor of TK News Substack. And obviously, welcome to the vast right-wing conspiracy.
We're such friends. Let's hang out sometime. I don't really mean that. By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. The rest of it is glad handing. That's where one propaganda outlet, the Daily Wire in particular, that puts out Ben Shapiro's show, that is a privately owned organization, supports another multi-million, a billionaire-owned private organization selling a narrative. And if you think of what we just watched with Ben Shapiro and Matt Taibbi as a discussion between an oil contractor that builds the actual pumps and the PR executive who is on a push to stop communities from complaining about the toxicity of their water supply. And so the BP guy hires Matt Taibbi in this case to write articles about how you can bathe in oil, and it's all positive, no negative, the value of this material, and then sends him on his buddy's show, who is owned and operated, by one of the contractors that he works with, to help push this idea further because they're all in the same business.